I never thought missing a couple rent payments would spiral into something so consuming. It started simple. I'd lost my job 2 months back. Marketing agency downsized. I was one of the first cut. I had some savings, but bills stacked faster than I could manage. Rent, utilities, groceries. I sold off extra furniture, cancelled subscriptions, stopped going out. I avoided my landlord for weeks, slipping out early, coming home late, praying he wouldn't knock. He wasn't your typical landlord. Mid-30s, clean-cut, well-off, always dressed like he was headed to a meeting, lived in the same building, owned half the block, apparently. We'd exchanged polite hellos over the years. I always got the sense he noticed me a little more than necessary, but he never crossed the line. Until that month. I was 3 weeks late when he caught me coming up the stairwell. No anger, no warnings, just a calm, unreadable look. He said, "You're behind. Want to come inside and talk options?" I nodded, embarrassed. Maybe he'd give me a payment plan. Maybe I'd beg. I didn't care anymore. His place was spotless. Expensive lighting, soft jazz playing in the background. He poured whiskey, just for himself, and leaned back. "Look," he said, "I get that times are hard. I could issue the eviction, but I'd rather work with you. I'm not in a rush. You help me out, I help you." At first, I didn't get it. I asked, "Help how?" He didn't say it outright, just stared for a moment too long, then smiled. "You're a beautiful woman. That has value too." I froze. Was he seriously suggesting what I thought he was? I stood up, hands shaking, muttered something about thinking it over. He didn't stop me, just nodded like he expected that response. Back in my apartment, I paced for hours. Disgust, disbelief, and, strangely, curiosity all twisted inside me. I hated that a part of me wasn't completely outraged. He was attractive, successful. I'd had worse men treat me like dirt for free. Now someone was offering safety, stability, at a cost. The next morning, I woke up early and scrolled job boards for hours. Nothing. Sent out resumes, got no replies. My fridge had half a bottle of ketchup and old milk. Rent due notice had the word "final" stamped in red. My chest felt tight. I couldn't eat. Couldn't sleep that night either. I kept hearing his voice. "You help me, I help you." I began weighing it like a transaction. It wouldn't make me a bad person. People did worse every day. I wasn't hurting anyone, no boyfriend, no one to betray. Just survival. I was tired. So damn tired of trying and falling short. If dignity didn't feed me or keep a roof over my head, what was it worth? By the third day, I hadn't made a decision, but I knew I was close. I deleted my dating apps, wore makeup for the first time in weeks, practiced what I'd say, how I'd say it, how to make it feel like I was still the one in control. And deep down, I already knew I wasn't. The next 2 days were a blur of silent war inside my head. I didn't leave my apartment. I didn't call anyone. I just sat with it, this strange mix of shame and logic. The world doesn't care how you survive, only that you do. I kept repeating that until it didn't sound like a lie anymore. I wasn't doing it for luxury. I wasn't chasing thrills. I was desperate. That changed everything, didn't it? I started thinking about it differently, not as some degrading act, but as a transaction. Rent in exchange for a night, a simple deal. No one would know. No one had to. He wasn't pressuring me. He offered I could decline. But every time I looked around at the empty shelves, the cold apartment, the final notice on the table, I saw the answer forming, quiet, uncomfortable, but clear. I remembered girls I'd judged before, casually saying things like, "She probably sleeps her way through bills." I used to think I was above that survival had rules. But when you're backed into a corner, the rules change. I wasn't trying to win. I was trying not to lose everything. On the third night, I put on something decent. Not seductive, not obvious, just clean, presentable, intentional. I didn't plan what I'd say exactly. I didn't want it to sound rehearsed. I told myself I'd go and talk, just talk. I wouldn't agree to anything. I'd set boundaries. I'd control the pace. I repeated that again and again, like a spell I didn't believe. My feet felt like they weighed 100 pounds as I walked down the hallway. Every step echoed doubt. I didn't knock at first, I just stood there, my hand trembling. I considered turning around. A minute passed, then another. But something stronger than fear pushed me forward. I raised my fist and knocked twice, lightly. The door opened almost immediately, like he'd been waiting. His expression didn't surprise me. Calm, unreadable, not smug, not overly eager, just certain. I stepped in without a word. He didn't ask what I'd decided. He didn't need to. We both understood. I heard myself saying, "This doesn't mean anything, just this once." He nodded, didn't argue, didn't promise anything either. And just like that, the decision I swore I'd never make was no longer a question. I wasn't drunk, I wasn't coerced. I was fully present, aware of what I was doing, and still doing it. There was no dramatic moment, no passion. It was quiet, functional, emotionless even. But something shifted in me as it happened, like a thread snapped. When it was over, I sat there silently, staring at the floor. He said nothing, just stood, poured himself a drink and said softly, "You're good for the next 2 months." I nodded, unable to speak. On my way back upstairs, I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I didn't feel strong or broken. I just felt disconnected, like I'd crossed into a version of myself I didn't recognize, and there was no turning back. Waking up the next morning, I expected to feel something, guilt, regret, maybe even power. But it was nothing, just numb. The kind of silence you get after a storm has already done its damage. I went through the motions, showered, made coffee, sat at the table, staring at the steam rising from the cup, knowing something inside me had shifted permanently. He didn't text. I thought he would, but he didn't. No check-in, no repeat offer, just space. It was almost worse. I wasn't sure if I was relieved or insulted. 2 days later, I saw the rent account marked as paid in full. No message, no discussion. I should have felt free, but it felt like a quiet leash had been wrapped around my neck. The next month came fast. I hadn't found steady work. A few interviews, nothing landed. I stretched what little I had, but the moment the calendar flipped to the 1st, a message lit up my phone. "Need to talk." I knew exactly what it meant. I didn't reply right away. I let it sit there for hours. But deep down, I already knew the answer. I told myself I wasn't selling myself. I was trading circumstances, again. This time, it felt easier. No hesitation, no shaky hands. I didn't wear makeup, didn't dress up. It became mechanical, like paying bills, just through a different currency. He didn't try to make it romantic. No sweet talk, no fake connection. It was just what it was. And when it ended, the silence afterwards stretched longer than the act itself. Weeks passed. I stopped applying for jobs, stopped answering calls from friends. I drifted through days with no urgency. My world had shrunk to transactions and silence. He started calling me over more often, sometimes just for company, sometimes for more. I went because it was easier than thinking. I'd already surrendered my pride, and without it, everything else was negotiable. But then something shifted. One night I saw him outside with someone else, a woman. She laughed at something he said, touched his arm like they'd known each other a while. He smiled at her the same way he used to smirk at me. And for a second, it hit me. I wasn't special. I was a convenience, a quiet, replaceable favor. I went home, shut the door, and stared at myself in the mirror.